Hey Desmos, welcome back to another Yalk. That's where I, Nick Desmo, yap for a bit and walk for a bit. You know, combine those two words, you get a Yalk. There we go, Bob's your uncle. On today's Yalk, number 3, the grand third one, I know I took a little bit of a break in between my other Yalks, but I had a lot of life stuff going on, and coming up with good topics for a Yalk is difficult. At least for me, I don't know how my idol Dan does it, but it's tough. And along that lines, I kind of wanted to talk today about trying to leave an impact. Now, that's something I think we all really want to do, right? We all want our time on this world to be worth more than what we do with it. We want it to affect other people, We want to do something that changes the way society it functions, right? But that's difficult. No, it's not too easy to do that. Some of the things I like to think about when I think of somebody who left an impact on me are not even like world leaders or people with actual influence over how things happen, but more smaller people like YouTubers, right? Like some of my favorite YouTubers growing up left huge impacts on me as an adult now. You know what I mean? Even though they were just filming games in their basement or whatever, you know what I mean? Doing just a walk and a yap, maybe doing a Yalk type style thing. It implants into our minds in a way that not much else does. Other people telling us something is so much more powerful than being told it via a robot or like a piece of mail. That doesn't really get across the same thing as somebody coming up to you, putting their hand on your shoulder and being like, "Hey man, you need to stop doing that. That's fucking stupid. I've done this for 20 fucking years and that's a bad idea." You know what I mean? That just has so much more gravitas than a Reddit thread of "You shouldn't do this," But anyway, getting back to the main point, leaving an impact. And my point with that is I think you can leave impacts without even doing much. I think the biggest impacts on our collective human experience are from the smallest gestures, the smallest, you know what I mean? You wouldn't think about in a million years. You'd be like, "That's fucking stupid. It's not a good idea." And then you're like, "Holy fuck. This changed the world," right? Think of how something like the computer was started, They didn't have this big dream of an interconnected world where you can text your grandmother in the Philippines at 2 in the morning and it gets there at 2:01 in the morning, They just were trying to build a thing that did a thing and they thought was cool. It may not have even been, functioned, but at the beginning, all they were trying to do was entertain themselves. And that's where I think the most important factor comes in for leaving an impact. I don't think you can go about it by trying to leave an impact. Because I think it's a wrong way to think about it, right? That's trying to put a square peg in a round hole. All you need to do to leave an impact is be... No, I don't want to say this because it's different subjective opinions of all of this, but be a good person. You know what I mean? Be the person you would want to look up to. And if you can be that person for somebody, then you're going to leave much more of an impact than anybody else. Even the big presidents, even the big politicians. I mean, they can affect, what the rules are, but they can't affect how you feel inside. The only person that can do that is yourself. And that's why people, like some of my favorite YouTubers, are who I believe leave the biggest impact. You know what I mean? They reach hundreds of thousands to millions of people. And they leave impressions. You know what I mean? It may not be very deep. It may not change a person's life. But maybe it is that deep. Maybe it does change a person's life. You know what I mean? You don't know what's going on. You shouldn't, rule number 3 in the 4 rules you should live by is to never make assumptions. And I feel like that is such a valuable tool. Because as soon as you start assuming how the world's going to work, you're going to be wrong. Because you can never predict what's going to happen next. It's just something we can't do as humans. It's fundamentally impossible for us to know what's going to happen next. All we can do is experience what's happened and relate it to what's happened in the past. And even all of that, you know what I mean? You can't really trust it, because what if John Johnington wrote in his book that we were a great society and we had no problems. But then John Johnington's son writes, "Oh, we had a bunch of problems. Oh, this was terrible." But what if in the reality of it, it was fine? You know what I mean? What if one person distorts their memory that it was such a terrible thing, and another person distorts their memory that it was such a great thing? You know what I mean? You can't do much about that. And when you are trying to leave an impact, you cannot focus on what other people are doing because you can't control that. It's out of your purview, you know what I mean? Just like how I can't control the weather today. You know what I mean? Would I have preferred it to not be rainy? Yeah, maybe I would have. But would the river have looked this nice? No, it wouldn't have. So we can just take the things that happen, and we can either be angry or mad or sad or whatever, but at the end of the day, does it really matter? No, really doesn't. We're all just here. We're all just trying to leave our little impacts, and I say the best way to go about doing that is just be yourself. Be the person you look up to, And if you can do that, I think you'll have no trouble at all in life. Thanks for coming on me. See you guys next time. Peace out.